Hey everyone. Yeah. Hey everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Karen Chavez and I represent Colombia as one of the co-chairs of the IAEG-SDGs. I'm here with Cara Williams, also as co-chair in representation of Canada. With great pleasure, we welcome all of you to the 12th meeting of the Interagency and Expert Group on SDG Indicators. I very much look forward to the productive discussions in the session ahead, and with a special recognition as an amazing co-chair for Cara, now I pass the floor to her so she can also share some opening remarks. Please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Welcome everyone to the 12th IAEG meeting, and I hope, of course, that you are all well and that sometime in 2022, perhaps we can start to see each other face to face and not in a virtual environment. The next 3 days, we have some really great discussion opportunities to learn and hear and discuss SDG implementation around the world. So we have great sessions, and I look forward to having more discussions on these. And with that, I will turn it back over to Francesca. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara, and thank you, Karen, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Let me also join our two dear co-chairs to welcome you all. This is from UN Statistics Division side. And just a couple of words to, as Cara said, to remind ourselves that we used to meet in person, and we used to be a very lively and we had very excited and exciting discussions. So our hope is that next year we will be able to perhaps start thinking of meeting in person again if things continue to improve and restrictions continue to sort of loosen up a little bit. We also can build on the very positive experience we just had, as you will hear in a little bit, that we just had in Bern with the hybrid format of the UN World Data Forum. So it seems like it's possible to have in-person meetings, or at least in a hybrid format. So we very much hope to be able to do that and see you all in person, especially because from the IAEG member side, we have a lot of new members. So it would be a great opportunity to be able to connect and get to know each other a little bit better. The other point I wanted to make today is that I think we can sort of congratulate ourselves for the amount of work, as you will see during the next 3 days, the amount of work that the community has been able to do over the last few months, the last year. And of course, in the context of responding to the COVID-19 crisis, but in general, I would say, you know, a lot of new innovative areas of work. You will hear a lot about that. So my hope is also that this will be a core part of the work plan of the IAEG next year. A lot of these new data solutions can become part of our sort of regular work. So there might be, and we hope that will be a strong focus of the group. So I won't take more time because we have to share a lot of information and we have many interesting presentations. So back to our dear co-chairs, and welcome again, everyone.
Many thanks, Francesca, for your comments, and in general, many thanks to all members from the Secretariat in UNSD for its continuous work and for helping us, the countries, in advancing the implementation of the indicator framework to follow up the 2030 agenda. In this first day of the meeting, we have proposed an agenda split in two parts. Initially, I will be conducting the part related to items for information, and then after a short break, I will pass the floor to Cara from Canada for the remaining points for discussion. Entering now in the first agenda items of points for information. First, let me invite to John Min from UNSD, who will provide an update on the Hlpf and the SDG report 2021. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Karen. And in this presentation, I will briefly talk about the lesson learned from 2021 and high-level political forum, and talk about the global SDG reportings. Next slide, please. So the 2021 high-level political forum on sustainable development was held from 6 to 15 July. The Hlpf reviewed 9 SDG in depth. So as a Hlpf, 42 countries presented their voluntary national reviews. Next slide, please. So effective monitoring and review process are key to the 2030 agenda. So many countries recognize that the data are strategic assets in building back better and accelerating the implementation of the SD. So therefore, the VNRs underpinned by data and are evidence-based. So in 2021 VNRs, nearly all countries incorporate data into their reviews, and half of all VNR included statistical annex. So data and statistical on the SDG indicators are used to present progress achieved and the change encountered in reaching the goals and the target. They're used to present the baselines and the progress made towards achieving the individual goals and targets by using graphs, maps, and charts, focusing on which goals or areas are making progress or lagging behind, or what policies are effective and what's not, and which population groups are left behind. Data and statistics are also used to present the impact of the COVID-19. And a lot of details has been provided in statistical annex. Many VNRs also refer to useful tools such as their online SDG data reporting platforms, and also prepared a national indicator report as a separate document for further support of their VNRs. Next slide, please. So in the VNR reports, many countries also highlight the challenges in the preparation process. The biggest challenge is the data gaps and the lack of data for the key indicators. Even for countries with advanced statistical systems, the amount of data needed for the SDGs can also be challenging. In some cases, the selection of data presented doesn't always reflect national SDGs or policy priorities stated elsewhere in the same VNRs. And also the need for timely data for swift policy intervention by government and development partners also mentioned in as one of the challenging in the VNRs. So many countries also highlighted the need to produce disaggregate data to address leaving no one behind, but also stress that they're facing difficulties in produce sufficiently disaggregate data. Countries also highlight the need for increased financial and technical support to have sufficient data and statistics to produce a more evidence-based VNR and to monitor SDGs. Next slide, please. So based on the SDG indicator framework, country provide the data to the custodian agency, and the custodian agency compile the data and provide data and story line inputs for global SDG monitors. So here I just try to list some of the global SDG reporting outputs in 2021. And I would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to all the countries and the custodian agency for their data and valuable input to the global SDG monitoring. The first output is progress towards sustainable development goals. This is a report of the Secretary General, and this is an official document to the high-level political forum. Accompany this report, we prepared the statistical annex presenting the global and regional aggregates. This statistical annex is about 220 pages this year. And then we have our glossy report, the SDG Development Goals Report 2021, which was launched on 6th July, the first day of the HLPF, and the report is available in 6 languages. Next slide, please. So in addition, we have a few more outputs. We have the Sustainable Development Goals Report Progress Chart 2021, and this presents a snapshot of global and regional progress towards selected targets under the 17 goals. And using a traffic light dashboard. This is available in 6 official languages. UNDESA and UN Women joint launched the progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, the Gender Snapshot 2021 in September 2021. So this publication presents the latest data on gender equality across all 17 goals, focusing on how women and girls are disproportionately affected by the social economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. This snapshot will be presented in details by my colleague from UN Women on Wednesday. And in addition, to the SDG report 2021, we also prepared an extended report platform. And due to space constraint of the glossy report, not all information received from the custodian agencies is able to be included. So the glossy report only covers information for about over 100 indicators. So therefore, in order to provide the general public with all information regarding the indicators, this extended report has been prepared. It includes all storyline and contents for each indicator as provided by the custodian agency, and it's unedited. So here are some of the global SD report outputs. I would like to show a short video summarizing the key findings from the SDG report 2021. much. Over back to you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Yonji. We just saw some interesting updates on how data is actually being used in the public policy field, highlighting the relevance of the measurements in the construction of the BNRs, the progress report, and overall in the planning processes for building back better, which motivates us, the statistical community, to keep working for widening data availability with a special focus on data disaggregation to leave no one behind. I'm going now to the next agenda item. Here, I'm going to give the floor to Mrs. Francesca Perucci and Mrs. Vukovic, who will provide an update on the outcomes of the UN World Data Forum 2021 held in October. Over to you, please.
I think Gabriela will
was
start, right? Yes, Gabriela, you go first.
Okay, your name was said first, but I suppose I should be starting. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chair, and I'm really happy to be with this group today. I have to tell you that I am very much cognizant of the fact that of the hard work that you are doing, and I'm really happy that all this work is being done to develop the indicators. I have to tell you that when I first thought about how we will be able to measure progress towards the 2030 agenda, I had many discussions about how fast we can develop, the statistical community can develop these indicators, and there were many skeptical voices, but this community managed, and the IAEG was really in the center, and you were the ones who developed these indicators. So I'm really happy to be with you today, and commend the hard work you are doing. In fact, what I want to speak about also is the UN World Data Forum. It was really an enormous experience. Many of us were able to be in Bern. 700, if I remember correctly, were present in Bern, and this was the first time after many years, 2 years, and we missed many opportunities and only could meet in the virtual sphere. But this hybrid conference gave the opportunity to meet in person or participate in a very inclusive way, by the way, in the conference virtually. I would like to commend the work of the program committee, not because I was chair of it, but because of the dedicated members who were a very diverse group, including experts from different data communities. And they gave us many different views, many insights about how the program could and should be shaped. So that hard work is also something that needs recognition. I would also like to commend the dedicated and hard work of the session organizers, who did a lot of work in order to put their sessions together and make them as useful and professional as they did. And the perfect logistic support provided by Switzerland, the host country of the 2021 forum. And I would also like to commend the work of UNSD, the Secretariat, who did an enormous job in making all this happen. The forum confirmed that the statistics community and statistics and data community is more active than ever. I would like to stress some key messages of the forum. Yes, thank you. The forum stressed the need for greater collaboration and coordination on data issues to leave no one behind. And also the need for to improve financial support, to increase the capacities of national statistical offices, to promote greater inclusion and access, informed by the needs of marginalized communities. The forum also shed light on new approaches to capacity development and the mobilization of financial support to leverage the opportunities of the new data ecosystem. Key areas in need of financing include improved data security, engagement with policy and decision makers, and the promotion of accountability. Linked to these two innovative and complementary solutions for smarter financing for data were launched. The first one was the Bern Networks Clearinghouse for financing development data, and the second was the World Bank's Global Data Facility. You will hear more during this meeting about this from our colleagues from the World Bank and from Paris 21 during the later parts of this meeting. The forum discussions also stressed the importance of good data governance systems and principles, along with nurturing a lively dialogue among the broad community of data experts to prevent the misuse of information. And speakers also stressed the role of communication and engagement with users in increasing data literacy and bursting information bubbles. The Bern Data Compact for the Decade of Action on Sustainable Development Goals was launched at the forum. The Compact recognizes the value of data as a strategic decision-making asset and defines the data ecosystem needed to use this asset effectively for people, planet, prosperity, and peace. It calls for accelerated action from the broader data ecosystem on the implementation of the Cape Town Global Action Plan that provides a framework for planning and implementation of statistical capacity building necessary to achieve the scope and intent of the 2030 Agenda. The Compact, the Bern Data Compact, focuses on 6 main areas to strengthen the data ecosystem. The first one is new approaches to capacity development for better data, which means that greater commitment to invest in the necessary skills and infrastructure from governments, the private sector, civil society is needed, supported where necessary by the donor and philanthropic community for a robust national data system. Innovations and synergies across data systems are the second main area. The full potential of administrative records and new and innovative data sources cannot be realized without public or public-private partnerships to remove all barriers to their use while ensuring full respect for privacy and confidentiality. Leaving no one behind is one of the key areas of the SDGs and of course also of the Bern Data Compact. Currently, we still see enormous data gaps on the status and needs of different population groups and communities. Filling these gaps involves more collaboration between national statistical systems and the wider data ecosystem to replicate standards, use innovative tools, and citizen-driven data along with official statistical data. We also need to understand a world with data. This is a different world from what we knew before. And we need to understand how data can be used effectively if the data ecosystem promotes literacy among the public to empower them to identify misinformation and abuse of information or of data. Governments, the private sector, and the media can help in presenting data in a timely, open, and impartial manner, where data with bias is clearly reported. This is a very interesting topic which national statistical offices have been facing over the past decades, but the whole data ecosystem needs to be aware of these guidelines. Building trust in data is another key area in the Bern Compact. Good data governance is the foundation of the trust for data in data. Through the law, through regulations, through common practice, the data ecosystem can safeguard the privacy and confidentiality of individual and business data while maintaining transparency, accessibility, and data availability for public interest. And of course, increased investment in data is also a key area. Smarter and increased investment in data is needed to address the huge data gap in informing the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and measuring its progress. As we saw, it can be measured. It is being measured annually in the glossy report, and in order to upkeep this practice and also to improve this practice, serious and smart investment in data is needed. For more details, I would also like to welcome you, as the previous speaker did, to the website of the UN World Data Forum for the full version of the compact, and also to see the program of the forum, which is reading the program is already interesting. And I believe the presentations are still available through the website of the forum. So maybe you can watch some of them, which are extremely interesting. Thank you for your attention, and I would like to hand over now to Francesca to give us some more information about the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriella. Hi, everybody again. Yes, I'd like to now perhaps take a closer look at what this community is and give you some numbers if we can advance to the next slide. As Gabriella mentioned, there was a very good participation both in person and on the platform. We had the platform Whova. Many of you might be familiar with it. As Gabriella said, it's still active, so you can still access the sessions there, those of you who have registered on the platform. We had 7,700 users participating online from a very, very wide community and different types of data users and producers, and 700 plus in-person participants in Bern. Those were from 180 countries. They, as Gabriella said, session organizers also did a fantastic job. We had 70 sessions, including some TED Talks and different formats, including 7 high-level, what we call high-level plenary sessions. Those were the ones that were not held in parallel with other sessions, and where we had the largest audience in the plenary room, and they were moderated by 2 journalists. So there was sort of a professional touch in terms of the moderation there and the type of discussions and questions asked. We also had exhibit spaces and overall over 300 organizations were represented. If we can go to the next slide, thank you. So in terms of where the participants are from, we have this very interesting map. As you can see, there was quite a good level of representation worldwide. And this is something we've been sort of trying to achieve since day one, when we had the first forum in Cape Town in 2017, making sure that we have good representation, both in terms of types of communities that we bring together, and geographical, of course, type of representation. Next slide, please. So in terms of age and gender, it's, I would say, roughly equal in terms of gender representation. And age, this time, it was particularly, I would say, on the young side. We had, as you can see, the majority of people were in the two central age groups, 25 to 34 and 35 to 44. We also had very good representation of youth. We had 2 youth representatives at the opening and the closing of the session that stimulated very interesting discussions with very, I would say, challenging questions, and really bringing somehow a different type of perception, right? How they see the world of data, and they gave us a lot to think about. And then they also engaged throughout the forum with different participants in various conversations. So that was quite interesting. And we had several opportunities, contests for videos, several other opportunities to bring also youth participants and give them space and hear their voices. Next slide, please. So who are the participants? The idea of the forum is really to bridge make those connections across different communities. And this is unique in the sense it's the only space where we bring different data producers together and users. And the idea is really that each session, that's the work that the program committee did, was to really identify sessions that were bringing together solutions that were the result of partnerships across different data communities. So you can see it was quite diverse. Still the 2 big players are the national statistical offices and the international agencies, but we had good representation from academia, from civil society, private sector, the philanthropy, media, etc. There have been discussions both with the high-level group, which is the group behind the organization of this forum, and the program committee, how to increase the level of participation, for instance, of the private sector, and how to increase the level of participation of policymakers, of users. So that's still something that we need to focus on and that we need to improve. Next slide, please. In terms of region, as you saw in the map, it was quite, the coverage was quite good. We had, as I said in the beginning, 180 countries represented. But of course, being in Europe and being also during COVID, where still many countries faced restrictions in terms of traveling freely, there was a majority of, one strong percentage of people, of participants from Europe, 30%. Next slide. So in terms of the engagement, how useful was to have the platform, and how useful was it successful? This hybrid format, did it really work? And I would say that it was, although in the beginning it was a bit strange to have some of the hybrid sessions where we had very few people in the room and the majority of people were on the platform, but I must say it did work, and the level of interactions and questions on the platform was very high. And so overall, I think this mix of people in the room and people on the platform worked out quite well. So this is what you see on the slide is the total number of interactions that we could see from the virtual platform, just to give you some idea. Some were connecting on mobile phones and some on desktop, and some used both. The total profile views were over 18,000, and messages received also, sent or received also over close to 19,000, and total session views was close to 30,000. So quite successful. So where do we go from here? I think the community has grown really very, very fast. It's only been 4 years since the first forum, and we're already preparing for the next forum, which will be held in China in 23, followed by a forum at the end of 24 in Colombia. So the community has grown from about 2,000 participants at the physical forum in Cape Town in 2017 to what we see now, over 10,000 people registered on the platform. So I think the focus of the group now, both the high-level group and the program committee, will be to, and of course assisted by the Secretariat, by the Statistics Division, will be to continue to build on this community and to find ways to engage with them, to keep the conversation going. And we have a series of webinars that we always hold in between the actual forums. And those webinars are the space where we invite people to continue the discussion and to focus on the main topics covered by the forum. In addition, we also continue to publish blogs. We have received a very large number of offers for blogs, and we're still screening them, and we keep publishing them every week. And there is a very, very rich and diverse list of topics covered. So I invite you to go on the website of the forum and look at the material that we share there. So we welcome you all to continue to be part of this community. As IAG, of course, the focus of your work is on the indicators, and many of the sessions covered solutions and showed very concrete results and very good results on how to fill those data gaps that we are all dealing with when it comes to producing the SDG indicators. So I look forward to these 3 days of discussion, and also, of course, to have you part of this bigger community beyond the SDG indicators, that is the data forum. And as Gabriela said, please visit the website and send us your views. And then if you have proposals for blogs or webinars, please let us know. Thank you so much, and over to our dear co-chairs.
Many thanks for the information provided, and congratulations for the amazing results at the UN World Data Forum 2021. Key elements are noted as the need for greater collaboration and coordination, the need to keep working in capacity building to strengthen national statistics systems with various elements that this implies, such as innovations and synergies in data ecosystems, and also the need to increase investment in data. Also, I saw that the UN World Data Forum provide us a perfect example on how can a hybrid format for the events could work really well. And an early invitation to all of you to come into Colombia for the UN World Data Forum 2023. Going now to the fourth agenda item, I'm inviting Elsa Dooley, who in representation of Albania as co-chair of the HLG will provide an update on the work of the HLG PCCB. Please, Madam Elsa, over to you.
Thank you, co-chair. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to all. In fact, it's my pleasure to be here today by me and on behalf of my colleague, the co-chair Ola Awad, the president of Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, to see your amazing work, in fact, done, and the new challenges that you are facing as a group by ensuring the standard way of providing the SDG indicators by all the countries on the different regions. And now, as you presented, I have the pleasure to present the work done over those 2 years, 2020 and 2021, of the high-level group for partnership, coordination, and capacity building. In fact, the work of the group on those 2 years has been focusing on organizing the 3rd United Nations World Data Forum and on the preparation of the Bern Compact, as well on the plans for the review of the implementation and update of the Cape Town Global Action Plan. Next slide, please. For all the participants here, the high-level group for partnership, coordination, and capacity building was established at the 46th session of the Statistical Commission and to provide strategic guidance on the content and organization of the United Nations World Data Forum and leads the efforts of the global statistical community to reach out and cooperate with relevant stakeholders, including civil society, academia, and the private sector. The high-level group is composed of the representatives from 22 national statistical offices and operates under the auspices of Statistical Commission. The co-chair, myself and Ola Aot, president of the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, represent the group at the forum's program committee, which has worked for preparing the UN World Data Forum. The organization of the next slide, please. The first work done by this group has been the organization of the 31 Nation World Data Forum, which was organized as a hybrid forum from 3 to 6 October in Bern of this year, 2021, where this forum brought together over than 700 in-person participants, as Gabriela and Francesca mentioned as well, and they gave more figures about the participants on this UN World Data Forum. And as well, it was followed by 7,000 people virtually from over 100 countries around the world, including representatives from national statistical system, international organizations, civil society, academia, and the private sector. For more information, you can refer to the link written in the slide, where you can find a lot of and extended information about the organization of this forum. Next slide, please. As well, it was mentioned by Francesca as well, the next forums are precise to organize in China on 2023, in the 25th April of 2023 in Hangzhou, Jiang province of China, and the fifth forum will take place on the week of 18 November 2024 in Medellin, Colombia. In fact, the preparation work done by this forum, it was that the hosted countries were invited to present their bids in June 2021. And after that, after the selection procedure, the high-level group launched and identified the two countries that I mentioned for organizing the fourth and fifth forum on 2023 and 2024. Next slide, please. The next work where the work of this high-level group was focused, it was in the preparation of the Bern Compact for the Decade of Action. In fact, for the more detailed information about the content of the Bern Data Compact for Decade of Action on the Sustainable Development Goals, you can refer to the link as is shown in the slide. In fact, the document was prepared by a subgroup comprising by Albania, Angola, Mexico, the State of Palestine, the Philippines, the Switzerland, the UK, Paris 21, and the Secretariat. The subgroup began their work in December 2019, and the work, in fact, was focused on preparation of the shorter document for the presented on the virtual UN World Data Forum organized on October 2020, and finalize a draft of the Bern Compact in April 2021. In fact, The Bern Data Compact for Decade of Action gives an overall overview of all elements that are putting together in this important document for this forum provided by the group. Next slide, please. The third important work where this group has been focused, in fact, it has been the review of the implementation and update of the Cape Town Global Action Plan. The group started its work with a view also towards understanding the new needs came by the new events happened and the global pandemic happened and the priorities in the countries, so that the Cape Town Global Action Plan bring its necessity to be updated. Following the high-level group's guidance, the scope of the COVID-19 survey was expanded, in fact, to include aspects related to the implementation of the plan and related financing needs. The Paris 21 joined the statistics division and the World Bank in these efforts. This survey builds on the past rounds of the survey of the national statistical offices during the COVID-19 and other surveys conducted during this period. The results of this survey will also feed into the implementation of the two recently launched financing facilities, Bern Networks Clearinghouse for Financing Development Data and the World Bank Global Data Facility, which are the two important elements to take into consideration for further implementation and finding the place for implementation in the other countries. Let's see how those results will be facing on the next two other forums, fourth and fifth forum. Next slide, please. Next, please. This survey, in fact, next, please. Okay, thank you. In fact, more than 100 national statistical offices completed the questionnaire based on the 6 strategic areas defined by the Cape Town Global Action Plan for Sustainable Development Data. Based on the results, a high-level group for partnership coordination capacity building, in fact, will embark on the progress to update the Cape Town Global Action Plan during the next 2 forums, 2024 and 2023 and 2024, to launch the revised plan to coincide with the next 2 UN World Data Forum. In general overview, this was the work done by the high-level group in those 2 years, 2022 and 2021. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Elsa, for a very complete report on the great work of the high-level group for partnership coordination and capacity building for statistics of the 2030 agenda. A recognition to all of members and participants of this group for the advance. We look forward to keep connecting some of the activities of both groups, the IAEG and the HLG, and joining efforts in the implementation of the SDG framework. Now, I'm welcoming Matthias Reister from UNSD for the 5th agenda item. Matthias will provide an update on the revamped SDG Global Indicator website. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can you see my screen? Excellent. Yes, thank you very much. So I have the great pleasure to present the new Global SDG Indicators data platform. in the meeting materials, you will have a presentation, but here now I would prefer to do a live demonstration so that you can see how actually to work with this platform. Usually I would need at least 45 minutes to really explain a little more about the functionality. So this will be only a short introduction in about 5 to 7 minutes time. So what you see here is the landing page that we newly established. So this is the landing page of what we call now the Global SDG Indicators Data Platform. And here we pulled together all the various data resources that we are having. So here what you see in this blue banner, you see 4 tabs. The first tab is the Global SDG database. The second, country profiles, then Sdg Analytics and advanced access. I will briefly touch on all 4 of them. In addition, I also scroll down here on my screen. Here you have links to additional resources that were available before, but now they are structured and presented in a better way. Now let me go first to the Global SDG Indicators database. And here you are invited to select the indicator, which I'm going to do now. So you will be presented with a pop-up and then you can select the indicator. For example, an individual indicator or all indicators under a specific target. So you can drill down. Here you can select the indicator, and below the indicator you also see the respective data series. So here I'm selecting the indicator maternal mortality ratio. Underneath I have one single series which is the maternal mortality ratio. However, I can select as many indicators and as many goals as I wish. Now I click show results and I will be taken to the new interface of the Global SDG Indicators database. We had an interface before and this is the new interface. What is improved here is really the data selection. Here we have the pop-up again. You can see what I selected here, maternal mortality ratio. And then we can also, of course, decide on the geographic area for which we want to see the data. Also, again, here you have a pop-up, which is much better structured than the previous region selection. You can decide whether you want just the data for the world or you want data for the world and all its everything which is underneath. And then up there you have the count of how many regions you have selected. And then of course you can also select the year range, and here you always have the information of how many observations you have selected at any time. You can show the results or download the results. When we show the results, they will be presented in a table format. And here I should be saying, so this database interface is mostly for downloading data. For looking at the data, you can look at the data, but it's only for the purpose to really give you an indication of what the data is. It's not really looking at the data in a way you would be looking for your respective analytical purposes. So this is basically a data extraction interface that allows you to download all the data. And you can select all data at once, download it at once, then you will be receiving a link and from there you can download then the entire database in one go. So this is the new interface. And now let me go back to the, let me go back here to, something happened right now. Somehow I'm disabled for some reason here through a pop-up, which, okay, now, thank you very much, Paul. So let me go briefly to the country profiles. The country profiles existed before, but here we put it now, made it part of this single interface. So you select one country, such as Australia, and then you are here presented with the country profile for Australia, with a set of indicators, SDG indicators, under the different goals. Here I'm not going into much more detail. Now the next part is the Sdg Analytics, and this is an entirely new component. Here we have 4 parts. The first part is analyzing data availability. The second part is global and regional trends. And the third part is compared trends of one series across different areas. And the fourth part is compared trends of multiple series by one area. So this is completely new, and I really invite you to go there and test it out. I will just show you a few of the capabilities. Now let me go to data availability. Here you can select certain criteria that you want to apply when looking at data availability. And then you have different types of analysis. Here now I want to compare indicators across all goals. And I want to do that for all countries or areas. And then I click Show Results. And then here I get an aggregated picture of data availability across all goals and indicators. You can hover across the respective indicators and you get the indicator label. So this is the global view across all countries. With all countries, I'm referring to the member states. We scaled that. We scaled the analysis to only include member states. There are other areas, but here for analytical purposes and the purpose for monitoring data availability, we limited it to the member states. Now you are saying, okay, this is very nice for all countries. I want to know how does it look for my country. Then you can select the individual country, such as Bahrain. You select it, show results, and then you see the data availability for Bahrain. Now you're saying this is nice, but can I compare countries? Yes, you can compare countries. Compare countries across all goals, show results. Then you have the aggregated view on data availability across all goals for all countries. We can also map that, but I'm not showing that right now because the map has not been working very well this morning. We have to look into this. And then we also have global and regional summary reports where you can get an aggregate picture. So this is data analysis of data availability. Now I show you a second part of Sdg Analytics, which is global and regional trends. Global regional trends is basically a representation of what we provide in the statistical annex to the SDG report. We can select the individual data series. I just selected very randomly. There's no no thought right now behind it, which also shows you that everything should be working here. I just selected one in random series, proportion of population using basic drinking water services, and then here you get a table presentation of the global and regional trends, exactly mirroring what we are presenting in the statistical annex to the SDGs report. Here we can also look at that as a chart, and the chart comes up. So let me see how I'm. Probably I'm already running out of time, so I'm not able to present that much more. Maybe one more thing, compare trends of one series by areas.
It's okay, you have a couple more minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. That's much appreciated. At least 2 more things I would like to show you. Here you can again select any series, and let me go to, for example, the maternal mortality ratio. So I'm picking the maternal mortality ratio, and then I'm selecting geographic areas. So what's important here in this interface, it is driven by data availability. Often the SDG indicators are suffering from some gaps in the data, and then people are trying to run some analysis and are finding, well, the data is not available for that indicator or that country. Here, this interface is really driven by data availability, meaning you can only select the countries for which there is actually data available. So making it much easier for users to get useful results. So I'm just randomly picking a couple of countries. No, I didn't prepare and didn't think about it before. This is just really random, just showing you how that it works. Yeah. So here, maternal mortality ratio. I picked here Burkina Faso, which is the orange line where you see it is declining. Then you also see the next line in purple, that's the world. And then you see the lines for Albania and Bulgaria. So here you can really compare in a very interactive way the development of one indicator across multiple regions. So this is one element that I wanted to show you, and then there's one more thing that I really want to give you a short insight or a brief introduction to. These are the advanced access options. So here we have the SDG API and Open SDG Data Hub, but we also have the SDMX Metadata database in a beta version. As you are all aware of, we have a metadata repository which presents the metadata in Word files and PDF files. And it's complete, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's very good. It's very useful, this metadata repository. However, it does not allow you to reuse the data. Meaning, if you want that metadata, you have to download a PDF in the Word. And then that's it. You can present it somewhere else, but you always have to use that file. Here, this SDMX metadata database, here we have the metadata in a database format and in a way that allows you to integrate that metadata in your own applications. This is a very innovative new thing to do. And I should say, while we have metadata we have around, I think, about 300 or so, or 206, 300 metadata sets overall. Here in this metadata database, we have only metadata as of now for around only around 160. So it doesn't cover yet all the metadata, which is due to the fact that we have not received from all custodian agencies the metadata in the proper format. And also, I should say it's quite an effort to put it in the database format. So you can go there, and again, it's a beta version, but here for the first time you have a database access to the metadata, and that is something that I'm not aware where this would exist for any other global database in the same way. So with this, I like to finish my presentation again. Thank you very much for this opportunity to give you a brief overview of this new global data platform. And I believe in a week from now, we also have a webinar, and I invite all of you to join that webinar when we have a little more time to present the features and capabilities of what we just now established. With this, thank you very much. Back to you, Karen.
Many thanks, Matthias, and a huge recognition for the advance made in the SDG database website. amazing tools for data availability analysis. So thanks to you for taking the time to show us how it works, and also great to know about the advanced access to the SDG data. After hearing all the great updates on topics related to the implementation of SDGs, now I will open the floor for comments or questions. Please feel free to raise your hand or put your questions in the chat. And for this point, I'm kindly asking to the Secretariat for help to read aloud the questions that we have received in the chat or in advance to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I will probably, while people typing their question in the chat, I'll read the two questions from the registration in advance. The first question is, what is the coverage of the work of the IAEG-SDG? And the second question, maybe I'll read the two together, then I guess the co-chair can answer is related to the IAEG-SDG. The second question is attention still being paid to interlinkages between SDG indicators, especially where they reinforce each other, synergies, and where trade-off inevitable? I think there used to be a special working group for this. Over to you, Karen and Kara.
Thank you. I'm going to take over the first question related to the work of the IAEG-SDGs. So the group was tasked to develop and implement the global indicator framework for the goals and targets of the 2030 agenda. The global indicator framework was developed by the IAEG-SDGs and agreed upon in March 2017. After that, a comprehensive review on 2020 was conducted and also approved by the Statistical Commission. And also this is complemented with permanent reviews of the refinements and tier classifications of all the indicators in the global framework. In addition, currently we have 3 working groups in the IAEG-SDGs. I'm just going to mention in non-specific order. We have the statistical data and metadata exchange, SDMX, the geospatial information, and also the working group for measurement of development support. Annually, the IAEG-SDG also developed a work plan. For the current work plan, I would like to highlight the work conducted by the subgroup who is reviewing now all the metadata of the global indicators. And with this, I will pass the floor to Kara in case she wants to add something about this question and also to answer the second question. Over to you.
Thank you, Karen. I think you covered the first question very well, so I have nothing to add to that. With respect to the interlinkages, I think the interlinkages are a very important component of the SDGs, particularly in the implementation of policy actions to address the goals. You might recall that the IAEG-SDG had a working stream on interlinkages, and that group examined various interlinkages within the SDG framework, as well as interlinkages from the SDGs to other frameworks. There were 2 reports that were prepared as background documents to both the 50th and the 51st Statistical Commissions, and the group had completed its mandate. So I invite everyone to take a look at these if they're interested in understanding a bit more about the interlinkages. I think now internationally, much of the work that is being done is to monitor interlinkages at the policy implementation level to understand the complex nature of the intersectionality of the SDGs at both the goal, the target, and the indicator level. And so now the work being done really is in policy development, and some countries are looking at it nationally to better understand how action in one SDG impacts the other SDGs. So thank you very much for your question.
I don't think any question in the chat. Also, there's no hand raised.
Okay, thank you. So I think that we are ready to a short 5-minute break. And when we return, Cara Williams will share the going forward of the session. Thank you, all of you.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay, can I leave just ending, or will I stop the whole meeting if I?
You can leave now. I just
I
removed your
can.
co-host.
You revoked. Okay.
Yes, thank you,
Thank
Gabriela.
you. Okay, thanks. Bye. See you. Bye. Elsa. Bye.
Welcome back, everybody. I would like to add my thanks to all the presenters in the first half of our session today. As you can see, much work has been done internationally in the statistical community. And so now we're going to turn our attention to presentations that include an update of the work of the 3 IAEG-SDGs working group. And this is agenda item 7 for those following along on the agenda. First, we'll start with Mr. Munoz from Mexico and the chair of the working group on SDMX, and he will present the work undertaken by the SDMX group. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a few minutes for questions, so please put your questions in the chat. And Mr. Munoz, I am going to turn the floor over to you. Please go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you well.
Okay, thank you. Well, hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the work that the working group on SDMX has been developing during this year and the priorities we have stated for 2022. First, well, as an introduction, let me tell you that the terms of reference of the SDMX working group for the SDGs states 2 objectives: the development and maintenance of the DSD and MSDs for the indicators, the artifacts of to support SDMX exchange, and the developing pilot and establishing of exchanging mechanisms for the SDG indicators. Well, the first version of the DSD was released in June 2019, and during the following years, we have kept updating it accordingly with the needs of the custodian agencies and while the reporting countries as the data exchange is being implemented. On 2020, we have a year when the group delivered the global SDG database published at SDMX and finalized the pilot for the reference metadata exchange between other achievements. And well, in 2021, the data exchange has been established with 5 custodian agencies and 35 countries as a result of this effort. And to maintain this exchange in sync with the global indicators database, we have updated the DSD 3 times. The last published version of the DSD, version 1.6, was released on October 8, along with the updates of the SDG series, content constraints matrix, the SDG data flows and content constraints, the SDG DSD matrix implemented in the SDMX matrix generator tool, the guidelines for use of the global SDG DSD, and the guidelines for the customization of the global SDG DSD. You can find all of them on the UNSD site. You can have these instruments there published, and additionally the manual to access the SDMX API, which is used to communicate, exchange systems with the SDG global database, which was updated on and published last month. Well, additionally, we have been working in the reference metadata exchange too. Currently, 15 countries have established the exchange of its metadata. Well, let me tell you, because we really recognize a big effort that has been done by UNSD, and especially the team coordinated by Abdullah Gonzalo, which has provided a huge support for all the group. We have not been done any work without his help and of course of his team. And well, UNSD has been working very hard to convert the metadata sets for about 160 global SDG indicators to publish them using the UNSD API. And a beta version of a metadata visualization site has been launched recently, and well, the work is on this. We want to have this very soon published, and right now we are working in the program and in the plans for our work on 2022. And well, as some of the or as the priorities that we have established is to expand the data exchange with custodian agencies, and of course continue providing capacity development to expand data exchange with the countries which are the real providers. And well, other priorities that we have established are for 2022 to finalize the production of metadata exchange with the custodian agency. All these work, finalize and launch the metadata visualization site, publish translation on the SDG, because we have noticed that the translations are very important if we want to have more participation, more involvement of the countries on the exchange with using SDMX, and finally launching e-learning course on SDMX for SDG indicators to have some kind of explosion of, in the data that is being exchanged for the SDG. And well, that's all. Thank you in the name of the working group that today I'm representing, and well, open to any question.
Thank you very much, Juan, for the presentation, and congratulations on all the work the group has been able to complete this year. I think there's great progress with the 5 custodian agencies in the countries that are using the SDMX. And for the work plan for 2022, it's great to see that you'll try to be expanding capacity and also doing capacity development to help those who wish to use SDMX. So that's great. I'm going to open the floor now to questions about the work of this group and the work plan going ahead. I don't see anything in the chat right now, but if there are any hands up, perhaps if UNSD could help me on seeing them, because I do not see them. So I open the floor to questions and comments for this item.
I think there's no hands from and there's also no questions so far.
Oh, I think we have a question from my co-chair, Karen from Colombia. Karen, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a comment. Colombia is also a part of this working group, so we recognize the work, and also we agree with the proposed work plan for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Okay, so we'll keep the floor open for a couple of more seconds in case someone's madly typing in the comments, and then we'll move to our next item. So I'll just keep the floor open for about 5 more seconds.
There one hand from Bangladesh.
Okay, please go ahead, Bangladesh.
Thank you for giving floor. I would like to share about one thing here that during the World Data Forum, it was discussed about the non-conventional data using monitoring the SDGs. So as this is not considered in the fundamental principles of official statistics, how it can be addressed in the fundamental principles of statistics. Will the interagency expert group will take any initiative to think of it, how it can be addressed in the fundamental principles of official statistics, or work on it, or revisit the FUS?
Well, if I understood correctly, well, you can add this to the best practice using first of all, the guidelines that has been developed by the working group, the guidelines which can help you to determine how to build your data flows and your metadata flows using the tools that we have provided, like the matrix, the SDGs, DSD matrix, and the content constraints matrix. And if you need more help, well, there is a lot of information about SDMX on the official SDMX website, so it can be complemented. And of course, if you need more help, you can put in contact with the group.
Thank you very much, Juan, for your response to that question, and thank you for your question. Okay, I see nothing else in the chat, and I do not see any hands up. So thank you again for your presentation on the SDMX work. We're now going to turn our attention to the work of the working group on geospatial information, and Mr. Kevin McCormick, the IAEG member for Ireland and the chair of the Geospatial Working Group, is going to provide us a presentation on the work of the group and also will present the Geospatial Roadmap. Again, at the end of this presentation, we will have some time for questions and answers, and as well for IAEG members. This is a decision item with respect to the Geospatial Roadmap. I now turn the floor to Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Cara. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. As Cara said, I'm presenting here on behalf of the Working Group on Geospatial Information and our co-chair, Paloma Merodio. So the highlights of my presentation today will be the presentation of the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap, a discussion on the SDGs assessment matrix, and then our work plan for 2022. Have the next slide, please. So if we're looking at reviewing the work plan for 2020 to 2021, at the Mexico City meeting of the Wggi, it was agreed a work plan for the 2020 to 2021 period. The Wggi has worked diligently to this work plan and has broadly accomplished its aims in this regard. The Wggi divided its work into immediate and long-term activities. I'd like to take this opportunity to pick out Mark from our Hlpf from the Secretariat and Celine from Wggi for all their work on this particular action points here. Now, looking at to the left-hand side, we have the immediate activities, looking at one or two. Number one is review the short list of the SDG indicators, where geospatial information, including Earth observations, can contribute to the production of the indicator or the disaggregation. And number two, develop and provide guidance to the IAEG-SDGs regarding the outcomes of this review towards developing a long list of SDG indicators. Then just moving to the right on the status, we look at the short list, and the entire global indicator framework was reviewed, producing a long list of indicators. This long list identifies the indicators which can be disaggregated by geographic location or where geospatial information, Earth observations, can be used to directly or inform the production, measurement and monitoring of the SDG indicators. Moving back to the items, number 3 and 4. Number 3, strengthening communication and coordination within the international statistical and geospatial information communities and the IAEG-SDGs. And then capability inventory. Looking at the status on this, the Wggi has developed the SDGs assessment matrix and has established a wiki for its members and those of the IAEG-SDGs. This wiki is the platform that collates, reviews, and documents types of processes and methodologies that provide real-world examples and proven practices in applying geospatial information and Earth observations to produce indicators. Can I have the next slide, please? Continuing on, we're now looking at some longer-term activities. So looking at number 5, the Wggi Sdg Geospatial Roadmap. An advanced draft of the roadmap, pending editorial and design refinements, is submitted to the IAEG-SDGs at this 12th meeting. It follows extensive review from the Wggi, IAEG-SDGs, and the UN Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management, the UNGGIM. The SDGs Geospatial Roadmap provides simple and actionable guidance to the IAEG-SDGs, UN member states, and the UN custodian agencies to realize the innovation potential that using geospatial information and its associated technologies can bring to the SDGs. Looking at item number 6, interlinkages among the relevant groups. WGGI has invited representatives of other groups, inclusive of other IAEG-SDG members, the Global Working Group on Big Data for Official Statistics, UNGGIM Europe, the GEO, which is the EO for SDGs, and others to strengthen its work. In item number 7, toolkits and methodologies. Guidance and recommendations are encapsulated in the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap. The WGGI's wiki contains several examples of how geospatial information informs production, monitoring, and measurement of the SDG indicators. This also includes item number 8, the guidance and recommendations. Can I have the next slide, please? So, looking towards a new work plan. At the last virtual meeting on the 30th of September 2021, the WGGI was requested to provide input on a proposed work plan based on requests from the IAEG-SDGs and emergent needs. The co-chairs suggest a longer virtual meeting to elaborate actions on this work plan, and it's due in Q1 of 2022. This would include helping identify members responsible, helping to put the how to the plans, to the work plans, what, with a ranked priority. Looking at the items in here, we're going to be looking at first promoting the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap and conduct promotion efforts among the SDG custodian agents and member states of the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap. So this is starting in Q4, already starting, and then finishing in Q4 of 2022. Item number 2, support the IAEG-SDG with further guidance on disaggregation by geographic location and produce a guidance note on disaggregation by geographic location as well. And we're already doing some of this work and we're pushing it forward into Q1 of 2022. Looking at item number 3, we're looking at collating use cases of how countries have validated the outputs of Earth observations and incorporated these outputs into their national SDG ecosystems. Also produce a guidance note accompanied by national case studies of how countries validate the outputs of Earth observations in the production, measurement, and monitoring of SDGs. Yet again, we're pushing this through to Q2 of 2022. Item number 4 is promoting the awareness and implementation of the list of indicators and the SDGs assessment matrix. Also, develop story maps and other interactive tools to present and communicate the work of the WGGI. We'll be pushing this through into Q3 of 2022. Item number 5, communication and outreach. We're going to collate story maps and other material from members to strengthen the communication of the potential of geospatial information for the SDGs. This is an ongoing task. And then item number 6, liaising with the IAEG-SDGs and responding to emergent requests, and also responding to emergent requests that are coming from the IAEG-SDG at any stage, and this will be ongoing. Can I have the next slide, please? So the SDGs assessment matrix. This enables countries assess natural capacity and usage of geospatial information for indicators. The SDGs assessment matrix provides a framework for countries to identify the national agencies responsible for the indicator, the current and needed level of geographic disaggregation, the frequency of data collection and indicator production, whether its production is assisted by UN custodian agencies, how geospatial information is currently used to support the production of the indicator. Can I have the next slide, please? So looking at the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap, its grounding, so looking at the Statistical Commission decision of 51101, it's encouraged further work on better integration of geospatial and statistical information to better monitor the 2030 agenda through the working group on geospatial information. Looking at the next one, then this perspective of the IAEG-SDGs. In its 2021 report to this Statistical Commission, the IAEG-SDG Wggi is now focused on its longer-term activities and is developing the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap as a document that can build a bridge between the statistical and geospatial actors working on the SDGs. The roadmap aims to realize the as-yet untapped transformational potential that geospatial information can bring to the SDGs and complement the existing work of the Commission on the Global Indicator Framework. Can I have the next slide, please? So if we look at a broader context and considerations, where do we find ourselves today and where will we be tomorrow? So 20 years on from the inception of the Millennium Development Goals and 5 years into the SDGs, regardless of the present global situation, the transformational vision and new data requirements called for to realize the 2030 agenda has only been partially realized. The extent of this challenge has been underestimated and is further amplified by geospatial data. Leadership, knowledge, and innovation primarily limited to some countries, the majority being developed countries, and we see this as the geospatial digital divide. While technologies are evolving at a rapid pace, the commensurate capabilities, skills, and opportunities in the developing countries are not, and the countries are being left behind. This is a gap that must be bridged. Accordingly, the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap has been developed to provide simple and actionable guidance to the IAEG-SDGs, member states, and custodian agencies to bridge this gap. The next slide, please. So the SDG Geospatial Roadmap, its vision and purpose. So the vision is to see geospatial and location-based information being recognized and accepted as official data for the SDGs and includes key strategic messages and facts. The purpose, the roadmap communicates the value of the support already provided to the IAEG-SDGs, UN custodian agencies and member states, and elaborates on the vision to see geospatial and location-based information being recognized and accepted as official data for the SDGs and our global indicators. So how? The roadmap outlines how to build a bridge between the statistical and geospatial actors working within the global indicator framework through 3 phases. 1, prepare and plan. 2, design, develop, and testing. 3, measuring, monitoring, and reporting geospatially enabled SDG indicators. For both users, which we look at the countries, and providers, the regional commissions, SDG custodian agencies, and other experts of the SDGs and our global indicators. Can I have the next slide, please? So if we're looking at here, we look at phase 1, prepare and plan. Through the implementation of phase 1, the basic data to measure, monitor, and produce indicators is established and available to be integrated, disaggregated, and disseminated to inform decision making. The key actions in phase 1 is establish governance structures to coordinate SDGs on the national level, identify national data capacity and highlight potential data gaps, identify and access relevant frameworks and standards, access available skills and technology capacity. Here on the bottom, we have some of the frameworks in place. We have the IGIF on the left, then the GSGF, and then the GSBPM. And we see these all coming together to produce indicators for the SDGs. Can I have the next slide, please? So phase 2, we're looking at design, development, and testing. Phase 2 of the roadmap entails designing, developing, and testing that enables the implementation of the roadmap. Developing a training program is crucial for providing technical training and support and for building organizational support and buy-in at all levels of member states, the IAEG-SDGs and custodian agencies. This is to ensure that the foundation established in phase 1 is fully utilized and further able to integrate future innovative data streams as and when they are available. So the key actions on our phase 2 is identify relevant data and appropriate methodologies to develop indicators, prioritize and identify what data is needed at the national level, being workshops, sharing of knowledge and experiences, identify appropriate data, develop methods and coordinate development support, and finally, collaborate with national and global entities to leverage available capacity. Can I have the next slide, please? So looking at phase 3, which is measuring, monitoring and reporting geospatially enabled SDG indicators. So phase 3 of the roadmap demonstrates how and why the measurement, monitoring and reporting of geospatially enabled SDG indicators can be achieved. This will be done through highlighting examples of good practices and available tools. Should this also include a vision piece of what the future should hold? That's a question that we're actually putting out. Our roadmap will be a live document. So the key actions we have in this particular phase is produce indicators, implement a suitable data management and dissemination platform, identifying technological capacities and gaps, promote a culture of storytelling with existing data and highlight existing data gaps, establish a publication calendar, identify institutional areas of responsibility for monitoring the indicators, publish metadata and continually update the list of prioritized indicators, including sources of information used. Can I have the next slide, please? So here we have our work. It's encapsulated in this particular diagram here. We started in March 2020 in Mexico at our meeting where the concept of the Geospatial Roadmap was conceived. We then moved into November of 2020 at the 11 meeting where we actually presented on the progress of the Wggi and also where we first discussed the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap. In March 2021, we had a Wggi side event at the 52nd StatCom. A zero draft of the Sdg Geospatial Roadmap is in our back pocket in preparation for this event. So we were developing out our roadmap at that stage. Moving on then, we went to August 2021, an advanced draft of the Sdg Geospatial Roadmap. We submitted it as a background document for comments and guidance of the UNGGM at its 11th session. So then we come to here, which is the 13th meeting of the IAEG-SDGs, and we're asking for the IAEG-SDG to consider will it submit the SDG roadmap for adoption to the Statistical Commission. And then, of course, we have our star, which is the Statistical Commission in March of 2022. And I think the IAEG, so this all has to be completed by 17th of Jan 2022 for submission to March 2022 to StatCom. Can I have the next slide, please? So looking at how did Wggi develop the roadmap? I said we have 3 phases: the prepare and plan, design, development, and testing, measuring, monitoring, and reporting geospatially enabled SDG indicators. So we undertook informal conversations with key stakeholders in the IAEG-SDGs and the Wggi, including countries, SDG custodian agencies, and other experts. We actually interacted with the users, which is the countries, of geospatial information Earth observations. We identified pain points, gaps, and challenges that prevent the use of geospatial information and Earth observations to measure, monitor, and produce the SDGs. We identify and prioritize the needs, the wants, and the nice to haves for each of the phases. We identify and cover what is missing within the guiding questions. And with the providers, which of course would be the SDG custodian agencies and expert organizations, etc., on the geospatial information, Earth observations, on how tools and methods can support each of the phases of the roadmap. Here we identify where support is currently developed or being built and where it's not, and highlight areas for innovation and development. Can I have the next slide, please? So looking forward, we consolidated inputs from the IAEG-SDGs and Wggi into the SDGs roadmap, supported the available and required disaggregation dimensions and categories for the global indicator framework, specifically for those indicators related to disaggregation by geographic location. We continue to collate and update the list of indicators with national examples of how geospatial information and Earth observations are being used to produce, measure, monitor the SDGs, targets and goals. We identified 4 to 5 case studies where SDG indicators derived from geospatial information have been used to support policy and decision making. And these are contained in the supplements to our roadmap. Undertook broad consultation and promotion, including, as I said previously, slide the 50-second StatCom and the 11th session of the UNGGI, the outputs of the WGI, while ensuring that the needs of the IAEG-SDGs are being achieved and communicated. And we communicated the outputs to the IAEG-SDGs and other relevant parties at a regular basis. The next slide. Okay, so only 2 slides to go. Some final thoughts. If you can produce the indicators, you can produce many other statistics useful for national development priorities. For example, COVID-19. Geospatial information must be truly accepted as an input in the statistical production process. Inputs from the IAEG-SDGs and Wggi on the roadmap to date. To many, the true impact of this work has not yet been realized. This includes some of the outputs of the Wggi. As such, the roadmap aims to communicate the value of the support already provided to the IAEG-SDGs, UN custodian agencies and member states to elaborate on the vision to see geospatial and location-based information being recognized and accepted as official data for the SDGs and their global indicators. Can I have the next slide, please? So the next steps. Following, well, we're saying hopefully the acceptance by the IAEG-SDGs, Mexico will reformat and edit the SDGs Geospatial Roadmap in preparation for the submission to the 53rd StatCom as a background document to the IAEG-SDGs report. An interactive version is being developed. This highlights interactive resources from Colombia, Japan, Mexico, FAO and others, using the guidance on story maps already provided to the IAEG-SDGs. Unofficial translations of the Sdg Geospatial Roadmap in French and Spanish are also provided to the IAEG-SDGs for their consideration, and any final designed version will include these translations. The WGGI seeks support from the IAEG-SDGs with translation of the roadmap into other languages, for example, Arabic. Thank you. I think I'm finished just there now.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Congratulations on the work of the group, and congratulations on the roadmap. I really like the phased approach to the roadmap with the key actions. So it makes it very clear what needs to be done to move forward. So thank you again for that. So before we get to the determining if the roadmap goes forward, let's have some questions and answers on the roadmap, if there are any. So I'm going to open the floor. So please either raise your hand or write questions or comments on the roadmap and the work plan of the Geospatial Working Group in the chat. So I'll give a second for people to type, and if UNSD can help me if they see raised hands. I am not seeing any comments or in the chat, and I do not see any hands up. We'll wait about 5 more seconds, and at that point, then we'll need IAG members their position on moving the roadmap forward to the commission. So we'll just wait a couple more seconds. Okay, I do not see any comments or raised hands. So now IAG members. So how we thought we would do this is to find out if you're in agreement for the roadmap to go to the commission for its acceptance as and it will go as a background document to the commission and as part of the IAEG's work. I would ask you if you agree and accept the roadmap for you to raise your hand. And if you're unable to raise your hand in the chat, or pardon me, raise your hand, we will do a count by, you can enable your camera for a moment. So IAG members, if you could raise your hands now, if you agree to accepting the roadmap to go to the commission. UNSD, I see lots of thumbs up happening. I hope you are keeping track of those as well, because they're flying past on my screen. And I do see that Brazil has noted in the chat they support the roadmap and offers their congratulations. So UNSD, if you can also help me out on counts here.
I don't know if Heather and Paul can help me here. I count 9 reasons on the screen and also a lot of thumbs up.
Yes, I have the list if you want me to just go through it really quickly, and we'll make sure we didn't miss anybody. So we have hand raised for Hungary, Ireland, Canada, Colombia, Sweden, Egypt, Brazil, Tunisia, India, Moldova was there for a second, and I think it came off. Oh, it's back again. Moldova. And let me just check the chat to see if there's any more. Equatorial Guinea as well. Malawi. We're at, in Denmark, we're at 13. Malaysia.
Did you count Tunisia already?
Yep, we've got Tunisia, thank you. Malaysia as well, also agrees.
I briefly saw Italy in with a hand up.
Okay, we can check. Dominican Republic as well.
Japan, hand up.
Japan is also in agreement, thank you. The virtual world, yes. I think. Great. Okay. Okay, so I can run through the list one more time just to make sure we haven't missed anyone. Hungary, Ireland, Canada, Colombia, Sweden, Egypt, Brazil, Tunisia, India, Moldova, Equatorial Guinea, Malawi, Denmark, Malaysia, Dominican Republic, and Japan. For IAG members, this is what we're counting who are in agreement.
Italy?
In Italy?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry,
Italy. I saw the hands up. The thumbs up.
Okay. Great. We do very much appreciate the other countries' support. We're just also counting the IAG members who are supporting the roadmap. Okay, please let us know if we've forgotten anyone else.
I think Bulgaria and Palestine just added their support in the chat.
Right, we're just doing IAG members.
is excellent. So it looks like we have acceptance, and the roadmap will go forward to the Commission for adoption. So thank you very much, Kevin, and all the members of the Geospatial Working Group. This is great news. And so now we are at item 7C on the agenda, an update on the Measurement of Development Support Working Group. Ms. Brathaug, and excuse my pronunciation, of Norway, and Mr. Mendez of Colombia are both the co-chairs of the working group, and they're going to provide us an update on the work of the group, as well as present on the consultation and the indicator proposal. At the end of this presentation, we will again have time for questions and comments. And as a reminder, this is also a decision item for IAEG members. But first we'll have the presentation. So I'm going to turn the floor over to colleagues from Norway and Colombia. Thank you.
Very much, Madam Co-Chair, and good morning, dear colleagues, dear experts. It's a real pleasure for me to be here to update you on the progress that has been done in the working group on measurement of development support. Paul, if you might go to the next slide, please. So just as a general context, and I'll go quickly on the process to give the floor afterwards to Madam Anne-Lisbeth from Norway. So the working group was established on May 2020, and since then we have held 14 meetings, which means that we have met mostly on a monthly basis, and we have as a main objective to further develop and refine the measurement of development support in line with the 2030 agenda under target 17.3, which is mobilize additional financial resources for developing countries from multiple sources. As per our TORs, we have constantly reported to the IAEG in 6 different occasions, mostly on the open meetings that have been organized, but also, for example, for the report that was submitted to the 51st Statistical Commission on March 2021. Next slide, please. So as you might see in this slide regarding the membership, it's important to highlight that we have sought to gain geographical representation to ensure a wide participation from different stakeholders. The TORs have mandated us not only to engage with members from the national statistical offices, but also from the agencies that are in charge of the development cooperation in each one of these countries. So besides the membership that highlighted, we have had 4 observers to this process, which are Brazil, the Netherlands, the Republic of Korea, and Germany, and have benefited from great support from UNCTAD and OECD as observers and as contributors also to this process. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you, Paul. If you can advance to allow the graphics to show off a little bit. So as part of our process, and as being said before, we have regularly updated the IAEG on the progress that has been made. So it's important to highlight at this stage that after the 13th meeting, which was held on the 8th of July, we carry out an open consultation which lasted from the 16th of July to the 27th to the 27th of August, in which we sought to gain approval from a wide range of stakeholders, non-limited to the national statistical offices, but also involving the civil society, the academia, international organizations, and others. Afterwards, on the 7th of September, it's important to highlight the 7th meeting of a subgroup of this working group, which is on South-South cooperation, in which they worked on the report to be shared with the group, and also to refine a little bit the framework for the measurement of South-South cooperation. After this meeting, we had the pleasure to engage with the G77 plus China in New York to provide an overall update on this process, as it's, as you might be aware, it's very important to also gain this political support. And after the consultation was closed and that the G77 plus China was briefed, we had the opportunity to have our 14th meeting in the 14th, 15th, and 20th of September, in which we were able to assess the overall result of the consultation and update the proposal accordingly. Next, please. As you might see here, we have the results of this open consultation, and it's important to highlight both a wide participation from different types of stakeholders, said before, not only governmental entities, but also international and regional organizations, the private sector, and also a wide participation from all the regions. And as a conclusion of this process, it's important to note that general support for the proposal, in which the concerns that were outlined were discussed and reviewed during the 14th meeting of the working group, allowing us to reach a consensus on the proposal. Next one, please. So I'm going to focus now, before going into the proposal itself, in one of the flagships of this process, which is a conceptual framework on South cooperation. This process was led by India as chair and had UNCTAD providing secretarial support, and had the OECD and the Russian Federation as observers. This working group, this subgroup, sorry, was comprised of Brazil, China, Colombia, Cuba, Egypt, Ghana, India, Mexico, and South Africa, and Tanzania. So as you might see, it's very important to take into account all the practices involving South cooperation, as it is a very heterogeneous practice around the world. So according to this, a working plan was agreed and executed, which benefited from the leadership of Brazil and Mexico to develop a matrix of alternative of grouping the different South cooperation modalities, and then refined it with the contribution of members, but also through the lessons learned by the colleagues of the Total Official Support for Sustainable Development Task Force, to share some of the main lessons learned of that process and enrich it in overall. So as a conclusion, this subgroup managed to reach a wide agreement on the conceptual framework that should be followed in an attempt to measure South cooperation. Next slide, please. So through this process, the co-chairs of the Working Group on Measurement of Development Support and the Secretariat of the United Nations Statistical Division have asked UNCTAD to act provisionally as a co-custodian of this new indicator. And it's important to differentiate the three categories which are included in this framework. The first one being the financial South-South cooperation modalities. The second one, the non-financial modalities which are suitable for monetization. And finally, the non-financial South-South cooperation modalities, in which there might be some different perspective on whether they can or cannot be monetized. Nonetheless, it's important to raise that some challenges might remain, which are related to agreeing in an overall perspective on South-South cooperation. This is an issue that has been being discussed for more than 40 years, and it has been quite difficult to achieve a process. So as co-chairs, we are very happy to have promoted a dialogue allowing this process to move forward. So it's important to also highlight that several South-South cooperation providers have volunteered to pilot test this methodology in collaboration with UNCTAD. And finally, as highlighted before, the G77 plus China were briefed on the 17th of September, and we are happy to announce that we have managed to gather some great support from them. Next slide, please. So as an overview of our last meeting, which we had the opportunity to brief the IAEG on the last open meeting, through this 3-day meeting, we managed to identify the different concerns that were arising from the open consultation, and managed to adapt the proposal, gaining a broad consensus from the working group, mainly on the integration on the South-South cooperation framework within this proposal, and also to amend some last changes that were suggested by members, the Secretariat, and the co-chairs. So this list of refinements to the proposal were discussed and shared via the wiki platform. So next slide, please. Finally, in terms of the process, after this review by the IAEG of the proposal that was submitted on the 12th of October. We will be looking forward to have a final meeting, a 15th meeting of the United Nations Working Group on Measurement of Development Support to review the progress and next steps which are needed to contribute to the report to the United Nations Statistical Commission, and in which we cover this final proposal. Next slide. So at this stage, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Anne-Lisbeth from Norway to take the floor.
Yes, thank you, Camilo. And then I have the pleasure of providing you with the proposal we have now suggested in the working group. The full name of the indicator, well, the short name, I should say, is Additional Financial Resources Mobilized for Developing Countries from Multiple Sources. That covers what is in the indicator, which is gross receipt by developing countries of A, official sustainable development grants, B, official concessional sustainable development loans, C, official non-concessional sustainable development loans, D, foreign direct investments, and E, mobilized private finance on an experimental basis subject to review in the 2025 review of SDGs indicators. Presently, mobilized private finance is a memorandum item in the view of the possible overlap with FDI. Data will also exclude private finance raised in individual developing countries themselves. And the last sub-indicator is private grants. We have proposed that co-custodians should be OECD and UNCTAD, as also Camilo said. And this is the goal which are targeted are SDG target 17.3. Next slide, please. There are 10 key features of the proposal. It includes criteria to identify flows that can be considered as supporting sustainable development. This is important. Well, they are all important, actually. 2, it fully complies with the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and promotes transparency by dividing the flows into 6 sub-indicators, as I indicated in the previous slide. Each of them which records a unique financing flow with a distinct nature and concessionality. And we think this is important to understand, to interpret the indicator. It addresses the SDG target 17.3, as I already have said, mobilized additional financial resources for developing countries from multiple sources. 4, all data represent new financing flows to developing countries, and it's covering traditional flows as grants, loans, and FDI, foreign direct investments, and flows that represent additional or new types of financing, and that in this context is multiple private finance and private grants. It follows the recipient perspective, so all the sub-indicators will be shown by recipient, we have the recipient as perspective. It was unanimous consensus of the working group, our working group members, over the South-South Cooperation Conceptual Framework, which has been presented by Matthias. And we have had, as Camilo also said, further support of the G77 and China. And we think this is actually a very good news. It's very good news that we have managed to get on board this framework. Our proposal is built on previous work from OECD and UNCTAD as well as on the total official support for Sustainable Development Task Force, the TOSD Task Force. Next slide, please. Number 8 we have listed here is that not only the proposal contains flows that promote transparency, the process itself has been open and transparent. Its progress was consistently reported to the IAEG-SDGs open meetings every quarter, and the open consultation included a wide participation of multiple stakeholders, as already said. Through the technical discussion held in the working group, exclusions to the proposal were made, considering data, for instance, availability of information, the results of pilot studies, and the sustainable development criteria agreed upon by the working group members. It is also important to acknowledge the role played by members of the working group that are also members in the TOSD task force. So the 10 key feature which we have put on is the exclusions. This is a set of well-considered exclusions and much debated in the group. And the exclusions within the flows is debt reliefs, in-donor refugee costs, administrative costs not allocated to specific development activities, and for peace and security expenditures other than those reported as official development assistance, ODA, eligible to ODA. The sets of flows that are not covered because they are both commercially motivated and debt creating is private non-concessional loans, portfolio investments, export credits, whether official or officially supported or private. The short-term flows within an origin maturity of less than 1 year, and any other flows that are not within the scope of the proposed sub-indicator. I will come a bit back to this exclusion. Next slide, please. The process has been developed, as Camilla already have said, during the period of May 2020 and September 2021. The working group's draft indicator proposal was submitted to an open consultation, which took place from the 16th of July to the 27th of August this year, and during which it received broad support and constructive suggestions by 112 response from across the world. And this response represented a wide variety of stakeholders. The process was finished following further refinements after the open consultation, and this was during our 14th meeting in second part of September. It builds on existing work, and that is important to remember, that it built on, in particular, standard OECD and UNCTAD data collections and the work of the TOSD task force. For instance, the proposed sustainable development criteria builds also on the work of the TOSD task force. The conceptual framework on South-South cooperation is underpinned by an initial conceptual framework on South-South cooperation, allowing reporting by countries that practice this cooperation. Next slide, please. It should be noted that the proposal reflects a broad agreement among members of the working group on all main aspects. Nevertheless, the proposal also reflects a compromise, with some countries less comfortable than others with certain aspects. This is always the case when you make a compromise. Not everyone can get everything they want. But this is this is definitely a compromise, but I think it's a very good compromise, and it reflects so many aspects which are important. So a particular concern of some countries that were the exclusions, which I just told you about, and they were extensively discussed. The exclusions do not imply a judgment on the importance of the flows or activities, but rather reflects the consideration whether they should be included in this indicator. For instance, debt relief is important, but it does not represent additional financial resources in the framework of target 17.3. And it's counting within the sub-indicators would drastically affect their meaning if it was included. And we think it would reduce their relevance as measures of net inflows of financial resources. So our gross perspective has been a very important consideration all the time, including in-donor refugee costs or general administrative costs would mean counting domestic expenditures in source statistics that do not reach developing countries. So the idea here is that only flows that reach developing countries should be counted. Expanding peace and security expenditures beyond those allowed as official development assistance would open the coverage to flows that do not necessarily promote economic development and welfare as the main objective. For instance, international police liaison, drug interdiction, etc. So this is why we said, okay, we do not want to go beyond what is reported in ODA. Next slide, please. So data availability is also an important issue. And the proposal is based on existing and planned data collection by OECD and UNCTAD. We had an idea all the time that we should try to not increase the response burden, even though there will be some new data collection, especially for South-South providers, as Camillo already had mentioned. For OECD, this includes data collection through Total Official Support for Sustainable Development, the TOSD reporting, as well as traditional DAC credit reporting system reporting. For UNCTAD, this includes data on foreign direct investment, which are compiled by recipient countries themselves and reported to UNCTAD. And this has been done for years. Pilot studies regarding all sub-indicators where global reporting is shared by OECD and UNCTAD is in its pilot data collection, the OC was able to provide, as requested and as applicable, data for sub-indicators for 140 developing countries and terror risks in all regions. And multiple countries practicing South-South cooperation, they were not included in the OECD pilot, but there we have an agreement that it should be conducted a pilot study while UNCTAD has committed to supporting others in their reporting. Next slide, please. This just is a picture of what we have received from the pilot study from OECD, and does not contain foreign direct investment, nor does it include South-South cooperation, but it is what we received from the OECD, from their databases. And of course, the TOSD has been an important database in this context. And this is, then you can see how the indicators will look like. For instance, and you see the sub-indicators And you can see that, for instance, for Argentina, the last line there, they are mainly, well, their main inflow of data is from official non-concessional loans, while it is less official grants. And this will differ from country to country, and being able to see what is important and not important for countries is, we think, is important. So this just gives you a flavor of how it will be like when we have all data. And what you see here, we have for 140 countries and regions. And the next slide now is that, as I said, OECD and UNCTAD are expected to become co-custodians, and I would, if the chair allows, think it would be to benefit for all of us if both OECD and UNCTAD could have some remarks before we open the floor. So if that is okay, Cara, please give the floor to OECD and UNCTAD.
Yes, we can absolutely open the floor, but I would ask that both OECD and UNCTAD keep their interventions brief. Thank you.
So shall I go ahead first? Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much for giving us the floor. So first of all, I would really like to start by thanking Colombia and Norway as the co-chairs of the working group for their stewardship of the process that led to this proposal. And we would also like to thank all the countries for the work carried out in the context of this working group and the interesting, intense discussions that we held over almost a year and a half. And we are pleased to confirm today that OECD is happy to become a co-custodian agency for this indicator, and we very much welcome the upcoming collaboration with UNCTAD on this. Now, looking at the methodology of the proposal, we believe that it really represents the best possible consensus that could be found within the group in the time allowed for the work, given the complexity of the issues at hand. And we are also particularly pleased that the working group took into account the 4 years of work of the International TOSSD Task Force. The proposal indeed largely relies on the TOSSD methodology, and it provides a strong basis for the indicator. I would also like to mention that we very much welcome the efforts to include a methodology for the quantification of South-South cooperation as part of this indicator. That is really a breakthrough in our view. So as Ann-Lisbeth demonstrated, we can confirm that robust data are available to inform this indicator. This is what we were able to do in the pilot carried out at the request of the co-chairs. And these data, they represent, if you like, a subset of all data on support for sustainable development available in TOSSD. We are able to pull out the specific data set from that database. And we very much look forward to analyzing the data compiled for this indicator in what we see as a constantly evolving development finance landscape. Finally, we will be happy to support countries and multilateral institutions in their reporting processes and to increase transparency on sustainable development finance through this indicator. Thank you very much.
Thank you from OECD. And I guess UNCTAD, if you are here, if you would like to just make a brief intervention, that would be great.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me now. Dear colleagues, I can only echo what has been said already and underline from our side that the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development is firmly committed to supporting member states in reporting on the proposed SDG indicator as a co-custodian with the OECD. As mentioned, member states approached UNCTAD to provide the Secretariat for the subgroup on measuring South-South cooperation under the working group on measurement of development support. And now, for the first time, we have a framework to measure South-South cooperation and its various modalities. The briefing for the G77 and China showed strong support and underlined the importance of measuring South-South cooperation for achieving the 2030 agenda and for the recovery from the pandemic. UNCTAD are putting together a capacity development program to support countries' efforts to measure South-South cooperation and this SDG indicator, and the program will benefit from the support and engagement of pioneering countries, especially Brazil, China, Colombia, India, and Mexico. And we welcome expressions of interest from other countries to benefit from the capacity development. It will include training workshops, e-learning courses, and support for national pilot studies. The program will be conducted by UNCTAD jointly with the OECD and the UN regional commissions, especially ECLAC, ESCAP, and ECA, as well as the UN Statistics Division. I look forward to expressions of interest and your support to UNCTAD and OECD as indicator co-custodians, and we stand ready to work together with member states on the proposed SDG indicator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, UNCTAD. I do want to thank the co-chairs and the work of the working group generally. I know this was an enormous amount of work to get done. Those of us who have been around for getting the adoption of the indicator framework, we know that compromise is your best friend on these things. So congratulations to the group on the work that they have done. I'm going to open the floor to comments now. Comments or questions to the group. So if you could please put your comments in the chat, that would be great, or raise your hand. So I'm looking in the chat now. I do not see any, but let's give a few minutes, and perhaps UNSD, if you could help me looking at if there are any hands up. I am not seeing anything. So I will give another 4 or 5 seconds here in case somebody is typing in the chat for questions or comments. Yes, go ahead, Heather.
Sorry, India requests the floor. They requested in the chat.
Okay, please go ahead, India. We're not hearing you, India, so if you can try to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Just one small comment. I'm not sure whether India has given its consent for that that project which UNCTAD agency was talking about, or it is under consideration program. I think some conversation with some communication with Mr. Sukhbir is going on, but it is under consideration.
Okay, I missed a little bit of that. It was breaking up a bit. I'm not sure if the co-chairs got that comment from India. If you did get it better than I did, if you could please respond.
Am I audible now?
Oh, that's better. Yes, for me, that's much better. If you could repeat it, that would be very helpful.
Yes. Regarding that project means analysis and other things on pilot project, probably what I could learn that UNCTAD secretary, they informed that India has given its consent. Probably it is under consideration. Some communication with Mr. Sukhbir is going on, but I'm not very sure whether confirmation has come to her or to Mr. Anu or not. I'm not. No. As for me, it is under consideration still.
Thank you. Okay, so just to rephrase that, I guess this is to UNCTAD, that it noted in, I guess in the presentation, it noted that India had agreed to provided consent on LLCs information. So if UNCTAD could, or the co-chairs, please respond to that.
If I may, I can just clarify that India was the chair of the subgroup on measuring South-South cooperation and therefore also provided its review of the framework. As such, I was referring to the future work that it will benefit from the support and engagement of pioneering countries like India. We are currently in the process of discussing the issue with India and will be approaching the National Statistical Office to formally seek their engagement. So far, we have been only in discussions with the chair of the subgroup, which is Sukhbir, that was mentioned here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the clarification. I'm going to read a comment from the chat from Raymond Sener. Congratulations for this cooperation between UNCTAD and OECD and RCs to measure South-South cooperation. It could be a good example for 1717.1, where the World Bank is still the sole custodian but cannot deliver a Tier 3 indicator. So there's a comment there. UNSD, do we have any other hands? I'm trying to look and I'm not seeing any. Oh, sorry, Raymond, he wanted to modify his thing from a Tier 3 to a Tier 1, and Wggi notes is a Tier 2 indicator. And a bit more conversation on the 17.17.1. So any comments left on this indicator? I leave the floor open for a few more seconds, and then we will find out from members whether this indicator will move forward to the Statistical Commission for adoption. I am not seeing anything, so we will handle this the way we handled the last item. This is for IAEG members. So if IAEG members are in favor,
Kara, sorry,
yes.
I'm sorry. There's a hand that just was raised for NSO from US hand.
Yes, please go ahead, Callie.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Just
well.
have a statement to read. The U.S. expressed its appreciation to the co-chairs and members of the UN Working Group on Measurement Development Progress, to UNSD, to OECD, and to UN Conference on Trade and Development for the diligent work in producing the proposal on the working group has submitted to the IAEG. In our view, the proposal represents a significant improvement over the prior indicator for SDG target 17.3.1, We note in particular the criteria for sustainable development, the recipient perspective, the South-South cooperation measurement methodology, the inclusion of private grants, the identification of TOSD as a more comprehensive data source for official finance, and the inclusion of mobilized private finance as a memorandum item. We believe that foreign direct investment is an important component of additional finance for developing countries worthy of inclusion, and look forward to further work on applying sustainable development criteria to it. With all of the positives, we believe that it is regrettable that the proposal reflects very traditional parameters for official financial instruments, thereby excluding the areas of innovation and growth in this finance. The U.S. supports endorsement of the proposal by the IAEG to the UNS Statistical Commission for approval, but strongly urges that this be done with a provision that the exclusions be reviewed for potential inclusion during the 2025 comprehensive review of the SDG indicators.
Thank you very much for our colleague from the United States. I am not sure if in that time there have been any other hands raised. I'm not seeing any. UNSD, if you can let me know if there's any other hands raised, and I see no other comments in the chat on this. So with that in mind, we're going to ask the IAEG members in the same manner that they did before. This is a decision item. Want to know if the IAEG agrees to submit this proposal to the Commission for its endorsement at the next Commission meeting. And I see a hand up, and I'm not sure if it's a hand up in agreement or if it's a hand up to speak. So if Hungary could just confirm if it is a hand up in agreement or if it's a hand up to make a comment.
I said agreement in the chat.
Okay, perfect. So IAG members, please let us know by raising your hand if you are in agreement with this indicator moving forward. Okay, I'm going to read through on my list. I see Canada, Hungary, Ireland, Sweden, Brazil, Denmark, Colombia, Egypt, sorry, I'm scrolling through.
Moldova had a hand up as well. Moldova agrees as well.
Moldova agrees as well. I'm not seeing any other hands up. I saw a thumbs up, but I'm not sure if that was a member or not.
I see 9 hands. Do you want me to just read through? I think it's the same list, but I just want to.
Yeah,
Want me
if
to
you
go
wouldn't,
through it real quick?
please.
Okay, great. So for agreement, we have Hungary, Ireland, Colombia, Sweden, Canada, Brazil, Denmark, Moldova, and Egypt. Any additional countries that would like to agree?
I see Tunisia has agreed. The Dominican Republic has also agreed. Kazakhstan agrees. Sierra Leone agreed earlier.
Was that on the roadmap, though? Just to clarify that this is for this indicator for Sierra Leone. Equatorial Guinea as well? Okay.
Yeah. If Sierra Leone could, the representative could confirm that they're agreeing. Okay, perfect.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I saw again, thumbs up kind of passed by me quickly. I did not see who it was. India agrees. Heather, can you give me a total?
14. 15. Malaysia as well, so 16. I can also go through the list one more time if you'd like.
That would be super, thank you.
Okay, so we have Hungary, Ireland, Colombia, Sweden, Canada, Brazil, Denmark, Moldova, Egypt, Tunisia, Dominican Republic, Kazakhstan, Sierra Leone, Equatorial Guinea, India, Malaysia.
Super, thank you.
16. Yeah.
16, that's excellent. Great. At this point, I see that the number of participants has gone down, so I'm not sure how many members are on the member countries are still on the line. Okay, so I think we've got everybody who does agree. I believe there's a few members that have not raised their hand. So can I ask if any members disagree? Can you please put that you disagree in? Oh no, someone cleared the hands. Could you, if you disagree, can you please raise your hand now? And UNSD, if you can help watch the hands up. There's a lot of names to scroll through here. I'm not seeing any hands raised for disagreement. Heather, are you seeing anything?
Nope. I don't see any disagreement either. So we had about 5 other members at least connected earlier. So I think for those remaining members, if you could just indicate your preference, that would be excellent.
I see Italy is, they've got their thumbs up, and I'm assuming, unless told otherwise, that that means that you endorse the indicator. Heather. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. Not sure if you're seeing anything.
No, we don't see any either. So we can follow up on the remaining countries that are missing.
Okay, so we have 17 if I'm assuming that Italy endorses the indicators. So if we can follow up with the remaining countries. Excellent. So turn on my video, even though it's telling me I'm using too much bandwidth. So this ends our session today. We will do follow up on that last item. But thanks to everybody, and on behalf of my co-chair and the other IAG members, I want to thank all of our presenters today for connecting, and for everyone who has stayed on and participated in these presentations. Please be aware that day one presentations and the recording will be made available on the meeting website. And we look forward to seeing you all virtually again tomorrow. So thank you again and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.